November the 14th to order, please. I messed up on the acknowledgement so bad last time that I'm going to read it this time. We acknowledge that the Northern Rockies Regional Administration Center is located in the heart of the traditional territories of the Dene, Cree, and Danezaa people of the Fort Nelson First Nation and the Prophet River First Nation. We further recognize the rights inherent in our treaty. Finally, we celebrate the contributions and enduring presence of the Métis people living in our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. Is there any additions to the committee of the whole meeting, council, staff? No? Okay, is there any public that wishes to comment on anything on the committee of the whole meeting? Online? In the room? No? Okay. Everybody's okay with the agenda the way it's written? All right, that brings us to a delegation. So Mr. Blackie is here, our health consultant, and he did a review of our READY program. So I'll turn it over to staff.
I'm just waiting for Doug to pick up. There he is. Oh, we can't hear you, Doug.
I was on the webinar version for the while there. Wasn't sure when you'd welcome me in. So, thanks, Your Worship and Council. Good evening. Hang on a sec. There we are. Just getting the technology sorted out. And again, thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the interim evaluation that we're wrapping up for the READY program. And you will have had a copy of the READY evaluation report that hopefully you've had a chance to look at. And for tonight's purposes, I was thinking just to run through a bit of a slide deck to provide you with an overview of what we sort of found, and then have an opportunity for any questions at the end, if that works for everyone. I hope it does. I'm seeing a few nods there. That's good. All right, I'll just bring up the slide here. So hopefully you can see that just fine. So we were asked earlier this year to undertake what I'm calling an interim evaluation of the READY program. You'll remember the previous council, when they approved the program in October of 2022, that the direction was given at that time to conduct a one-year evaluation of the program. And so working with staff, we were asked to undertake that. And the reason we're calling it an interim evaluation is because the program has only been really in operation for about a year. And you know, to some extent has had some successes, but it's still a little bit too soon to see if it's had like a dramatic impact on how things in terms of recruitment and retention in the Northern Rockies. Just a brief overview. We got started in August. We worked out the project scoping, really, you know, who we wanted to speak to, what we wanted to ask them, developing our interview and survey questions. So we had both a parallel set of one-on-one interviews with people, as well as the option for some people to complete an online survey, which had the same questions. We gathered that data from late August into the latter part of September, and then undertook a review of that data. So it was a mix mostly of qualitative data, so people's comments and impressions of the READY program, as well as some quantitative as well from the survey. But from that, we were able to develop some key themes and findings. So again, these were issues or observations that were common across the interviews and the survey. From there, we developed the draft evaluation report, which you will have received in your council packages, and working with staff, of course, to ensure that we got the numbers right on and that it accurately portrayed the current spend on the program, as well as ensuring that, you know, it was good to have a few extra sets of eyes to lay on it to catch any typos and things like that. Which brings us to tonight and the regional council briefing. And our hope is that after tonight and our conversation tonight, we'll be able to finalize the evaluation report and bring the project to close in about 2 weeks or so. So in terms of what we heard, I've pulled a couple of key quotes. You would have seen these in the report as well. A couple from survey respondents really talking to the message that the READY program sends, encouraging people to embrace the beauty of the North, as one person said, but also that it gave people an opportunity to come and see the community and made them feel welcomed and valued. And a health employer shared with us, and then their view that READY is a key and critically important program. So you're beginning to see that a lot of the feedback received from health employers and READY recipients has been very, very positive. Those themes that I talked about, and again, we can dig into these a little more if you want, but was really around the feedback around the Northern Rockies leadership on this particular program. So at the moment, the Northern Rockies is the only local government that I can tell in BC that offers such a comprehensive suite of incentives for healthcare professionals. Everything from monetary receipts, or incentives rather, to housing, transportation, the gift basket. This is all seen as leadership and innovation by the Northern Rockies. And we really heard that as well from the health employers as well, who really see this as a pivotal program to try and attract people to the Northern Rockies. We also found that there was a desire for a stronger integration with health employers, and the report gets into this in a bit more detail, and there's been some workarounds and some initial assumptions I think we made about how the program would work. Those workarounds aren't probably the most efficient, but they are effective in that when someone is recruited to the Fort Nelson area, say by Northern Health, that Northern Health lets the new employee know that there is this program and they need to speak to the health recruitment liaison, who then gets them hooked up with the different incentives. There's also ongoing communication between the liaison and the health administrator in Fort Nelson, as well as the BC Emergency Health Services unit chief. So again, as a network within the community, and it really goes to the next theme, is that the glue that kind of holds READY together is the regional recruitment liaison. And this is something that I don't think will come to surprise to some of the councillors who were on the previous council. But we really did see that these two initiatives, the liaison role and the READY program, are really two sides of the same coin. And they really do need to coexist with each other, because the liaison is a very valuable advocate for the program, marketing the program, connecting people to the program, but it's also in some ways the face of the program. And we received some feedback from one of the newer physicians, for example, about just how their entire welcome to Fort Nelson was made so much easier by being able to work directly with the liaison. The evaluation that we undertook the scope of the evaluation didn't actually include evaluating the liaison role, but it was hard to ignore it. And so we chose to include it here as a valuable addition to the recruitment and retention work that the Northern Rockies is doing. And the fourth theme that came out of it is really around how to improve the workflow and approval processes. So this really is around some of the workarounds that are occurring, but also the approval process. And when this program was designed over 1.5 years ago, we really thought, well, here's one way it could work. And we took that to council, and that conversation occurred. And an approval process was put in place. And it was discovered shortly after the program went into place that process had the risk of unnecessarily delaying when incentives would be paid out. So again, it was altered. And so what we've proposed is tightening up that workflow and approval process a little bit to reflect reality, really, that these applications under the READY program are being considered in real time and not batched for once a year disbursement, which was the original intention. And it does seem to work much better to be able to do that. We have offered a number of recommendations that are tied to those findings. And again, there's a lot more detail in the report about these recommendations. But the one that we really encourage council to take to heart is continuing support for the READY program, so that you can conduct a much more thorough evaluation in about 2 years. And that's so that you can measure whether the READY program has had any effect on retention. Because the program's only been in effect for a year, there really isn't any data on whether it's succeeding in one of its goals to keep people working in the Northern Rockies. There has been some uptake from candidates to the recruitment side, but it's very difficult to measure the retention side because this is really only the interim evaluation. So that's one of our recommendations. We also recommend that council continue funding in a parallel ways and supporting the liaison role to support the admin and marketing of READY, but also so that you have that consistency in the recruitment space, so that the Northern Rockies has a presence with health employers, but also has a presence at key medical conferences, as well as other with other stakeholders such as Health Match BC. I think the liaison role has been, well, as you know, Creston down in the Kootenays has had a similar role for many years, and it's been very successful. And this liaison role was modeled after that, and subsequently found that Quesnel has a similar program, and Northern Health has actually adopted a similar program for the Northwest as well. So we're seeing other communities and organizations getting into this this idea that having someone on the ground whose job it is to recruit and support people to settle in that community once they're recruited is very valuable. Our third recommendation is really around encouraging the Northern Rockies to keep dialogue and partnership with health employers as strong as possible, including Northern Health. And this is all around ensuring there's ongoing awareness of the READY program, especially when it comes to targeting certain groups that may be priority recruitment. So again, it's not to say that the program is not currently working with the health employers. I think there's an opportunity to strengthen that. And that's feedback that we actually heard from Northern Health as well. They're interested in looking at ways of improving that integration so that they can help support READY as well in any way that they can. And in the report, we talk a little bit about that. In terms of the physician recruitment team, they're all over READY. They think it's brilliant and they promote it to potential physicians. The HR folks who do the nursing and allied professional, a little less so. They're more process oriented, so everything has to be equal. But that said, they did hold open. An openness, I guess, to talk to the Northern Rockies about how they might be able to better promote READY. So I think there's a really great opportunity there. The last two is really around maintaining the current sort of suite of READY financial and non-financial incentives, again, so that you can evaluate these in a more fulsome way in 2025, so say in 2 years. It's important to maintain that continuity so that you can measure, from beginning to, 3 years out. Excuse me. To ensure that you have that continuity. You don't want to change a program halfway through because then it becomes very difficult to evaluate it. And the final one is really around adopting the revised READY approval workflow and the program criteria. So you'll see in the back of the report, we've proposed some changes to the workflow to really have it more reflect the current state as opposed to what we thought the approval workflow would be a year and a half ago, as well as the program criteria. When we went through the program criteria, the program description, there was a lot of duplication of information and things weren't quite right. So again, we proposed some changes there. So in a nutshell, that's where the evaluation sits. I will admit there are some limitations to it because the program was only a year old. We talked to 11 people. So we did speak to the primary health employers, as well as I think 6 recipients of READY, which is quite a number of them actually, both with surveys and interviews. So again, that is potentially one limitation because READY is so new. There isn't really a huge group of people who have had an experience with it, but we did talk to as many as we could. And yeah, I think that's really the only real limitation that I've been able to identify, with the evaluation itself, other than, yeah, it's still early days. And you really do need, in order to have that true evaluation, I would say doing something a bit more fulsome in about 2 years' time. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the presentation. Open to any questions, comments, ideas that folks have about how the evaluation was conducted and some of our findings and recommendations, and happy to entertain that now.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Doug. I appreciate the interview that you did with me, and I also appreciate the report that you put together. I just had one question and one comment. I think you answered the question already, and the question was around, because I wasn't involved in the initial part of this, I wasn't sure what the process was, and so I had a question about recommendation 6, which was your changes to the application and the process. But you just said that really your recommendation is just to reflect what we're actually doing now. You haven't made any new recommendations other than what we're doing right now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. It was really just to align the envisioned process with what's actually happening.
What we're actually doing.
Yeah, which is which is appropriate and more efficient, I might add.
Okay. And the comment I had about the report is really just, it's probably a typo. It's probably a cut and paste kind of a thing. But on in the executive summary, in the table that you've got of recommendations, maybe you've changed this already. So it's on page 6 of your report. Recommendation 4 and recommendation 6 are exactly the same. So when I go into the body, I see recommendation 4 is actually different. But in the executive summary, it's the same one. So probably just a cut and paste error there.
You're right. And we did catch that, and an updated version of the document was shared too late with for tonight's meeting with Jaylee. Okay. So it's sort of part of the official record now, but you're absolutely right. It was a typo, and I apologize for that.
No, that's all right. Are there any other questions for Doug? Councillor Gerwin?
Not necessarily. Thanks so much, Doug. I appreciate you taking the time to put together this report. I don't necessarily have a question for Doug, but I just wanted to comment on the fact that not every recipient completed the evaluation. And I'm just wondering if we should make that a part of their agreement, that if you're going to take this money, that you will be available.
That's a good idea.
To do an evaluation at some point in time. So if we maybe could include that. And then, well, you kind of spoke to this in just a few minutes ago, but on page 12 of your report, which was page 15 of our package, under the second point, talking about opportunity for stronger integration with health employer recruitment, the report says that it was admitted that, and while the Northern Health Human Resource contacts consulted were aware of RETI, it was admitted that they do not actively promote the program to candidates considering opportunities in the North. So I think that's a real loss. I mean, I understand their rationale that they don't want to be seen as promoting one community over another, but in terms of working with Northern Health, I would think that they could at least provide the information without being in jeopardy of, trying to sway them as to one community to another, just presenting what information is available. So I was kind of disappointed to see that comment come from them. And it was a reminder for me why we need to have our own recruiter, because nothing replaces that. And that was just my comment. So thanks.
Mayor Fraser, could I just jump in real quick?
Please. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
I do think, again, Councillor Gruening and I often see the same issue the same way, but differently.
You're so polite.
And that's not really a surprise to me.
These are lessons learned. I see, so I take your point, absolutely. I do appreciate the candor of the Northern Health HR person that I spoke to. You know, she's a leader with Northern Health. You can probably figure out who it was. But I do want to say that while she did say that, she did hold open the possibility of having further conversation with the Northern Rockies about how they might be able to, you know, not sort of ignore Ready, but to actually be able to, as you said, perhaps say, oh, and by the way, you might want to talk to the Northern Rockies about their Ready program, as opposed to just, you know, trying to be equitable to all communities. So there was a bit of an olive branch that I got from Northern Health, that they're open to having that conversation. Again, on the physician recruitment side, no problem, but on the nursing and allied health side, it's not a problem per se. It's just that they've been wanting to be equitable at all the communities, but they are open to looking at ways to perhaps better promote Ready to potential candidates. So I think there's an opportunity there to explore.
I think we see it exactly the same.
I think you're right.
I think we agree, Doug. Like, I think we should mark this down.
I was going to say, you know,
I also wanted to say that, so do you have a recommendation of how we can move forward with that? Getting this professional to, like, what can we do to have him or her be more open to sharing the Ready program with prospective candidates?
and this is someone, again, the interviews were confidential, but again, there's a small number of people, so you can probably figure it out.
Yeah.
This is an individual who has spoken to council before, and I think she's become more open to the what the Northern Rockies is trying to achieve, and I think part of that is the relationship that Diana, the regional health recruitment liaison, has built with Northern Health and their team. And I think it's really just, I'm saying, have a, you know, maybe a meeting, you know, invite them over, invite them down, but not necessarily a bear pit meeting, but to be able just to have some dialogue about, you know, how better to promote Ready within their space. I think it's just a conversation, to be honest with you. I don't think there's, you know, a delegation, you know, those are very formal. And as you know, people sort of stick to their talking points and things. But I think just a more casual conversation with the Northern Health HR group, you know, I think might open up some doors. It certainly gave me the impression that they would be open to that.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention, so there has been a real openness to kind of bring the liaison into their recruitment team. So she was invited to be a guest speaker at one of their team huddles for the nursing recruitment staff. And I think it's just doing more of that. And maybe it's not expecting that they're going to promote Ready on our behalf, but if we accept that our person to do that is our liaison, and she becomes a part of that team. So if there's a person who's considering the community, they're referred to our liaison. So they're not getting secondhand information about the program or the community, it's firsthand information. And I think that was something else that was identified by council early, was we're the best people to sell our community. So in my mind, I think the big win is to get that adoption of that role into their team as part of a larger kind of recruitment effort, and really leverage that. So it's not just the incentives alone, it's actually being able to connect with a person to find out what their interests are and why they would want to come to Fort Nelson. And to sweeten the pot, there's an incentive attached, but it's finding that right fit, because recruitment's important, but retention is just as, if not more. So yes, filling vacancies is great, and having a person for a year or 3 years is fantastic, but I think the bigger goal is to recruit people who love the North and would love to stay here for a long period of time. And that, I mean, that's one of those kind of unsaid values of the liaison position as well. And the fact that the mileage we've had with the Ready is absolutely as a result of those connections made, because people don't just stumble upon us, really. It's it's finding out that they're new and then introducing them to the program as well. So but that would be kind of another suggestion, is just embedding ourselves as much as we can into that recruitment team, understanding that we have a limited role, but just building that confidence that we're you know, the liaison's there to answer any questions and let the candidates know what they can expect if they were to consider coming here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking I mean, that's good and probably the best, but another suggestion may just be as simple as them. I see in your environmental scan, we're not the only ones doing this. We might be doing it, you know, and you've said we're doing it on a much more fulsome scale than others are doing it. But we may be able to just mention to Northern Health to put a list of all the communities together and what everybody is offering, right? That way, and you just hand it to the potential candidate. They get an opportunity then to scan every single community. Then it's fair. Of course, if ours is as comprehensive, as good as it is, they'll choose us. But at least it's putting I would rather at least it gets into their, even if it gets in a competitive sort of way, at least the Ready program's getting into the candidate's hands. And every candidate's hands, if that's the case. So maybe if we have a discussion with them, we can make that suggestion to them as well. Just put everybody's out there. Okay, are there any other questions for Doug? Comments?
I just had one other thing, and it was a thought that we didn't introduce to the report, but just thinking about how we can achieve some more efficiencies to provide that kind of real-time distribution of the program. And that's where council early on had reserved the authority to do every approval of applications. And just some food for thought, but where we have 3 months of the year where we only have one meeting per month. And also when it's an application that's entirely consistent with the policy you've set, I would just ask you to consider that be delegated to staff. And we can certainly bring back a report to council to advise of any awards, but it would be the ones that you're deliberating on are the ones where there's maybe some discretion required or a budgetary consideration or something of that nature, just to allow us to turn them around that much faster and yeah, kind of keep things moving from that perspective. So just some food for thought. And then I was also curious about council's desire to maintain the budget into next year. So we're currently in the budget planning process at the staff level. And this budget was operationalized as part of council's budget. So I think the sooner we can get some direction on that, the better, so that we can factor it into our first crack at the budget overall. So leaving those two thoughts with you.
Okay, then. What did we think our next steps would be? So we're coming from this meeting, I think there's general agreement the report is good. I didn't hear any negative thoughts with respect to the report and the interim report. I mean, I liked all the recommendations that were there, particularly the idea of if we continue this for another 2 years, doing a much more in-depth and fulsome review. I like Councillor Gerwing's idea of mandating the requirement that if you're going to be part of this, that you be part of some type of a review if you're still here, and maybe even if you're not still here, that there's an opportunity to speak to whoever it is and why they didn't stay. So I would like to see us maybe come back with a report from staff indicating that you want to see the budget the same, indicating that the changes that you'd like to advocate for are that we want to see with respect to the application and approval process, including the bit about if it meets the program, letting staff make the decision, right? Which means removing the council will make the decision, or yeah. So it's just it's a change in the policy itself. So if you make those recommendations, we can deal with it at whatever meeting you bring it forward to us. Anybody else have any ideas? Is that covered off? Councillor Gerwing?
Yeah, no, it covers it for me. I have no issue with it being approved at the staff level as long as it meets. The same with the grant and aids. Like, I don't know why we do that, but maybe there was a reason back in the day, but I don't know that that is still the best way or the most efficient way. Like staff is, they know the policies and procedures, right? So if it meets it and it's within the budget, then I don't see why any of it has to come back.
Just a report.
Except for a report that, X, Y, and Z has happened. Or I think something that we need to keep aware of is if we're reaching the ceiling on any one pillar, then council needs to have that discussion sooner rather than later. I wouldn't want to see somebody denied because we had reached that ceiling without council being aware that we were falling short in that one area. So other than that, I would have no problem with it, just moving forward and coming back to council when needed.
Anybody else? Okay, Doug, thank you very much for your time today. It was a very good report and presentation to us.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Council, and Jay and Scott and everybody. It's always good to work with Northern Rockies, and I'm glad that the reports landed well. And I think it is, as we said, Ready and the Liaison are two excellent programs that I think are really going to help differentiate the Northern Rockies in terms of the increasingly competitive nature of health professional recruitment and retention right now. So great. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll talk soon, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, is there any public online asking to make a question or asking? No, we don't see anybody on there. Okay, so there's no reason for us to move in camera for this meeting, so we are adjourned. Thank you.